What up, everybody? It's another crazy week of the Ross the Boss Show. They're bringing back the COVID mandates and the mask mandates. We got two awesome people in the house today. We got Kelly Walker and we got Nick Nittoli with Counterculture, their show. And Nick Nittoli's also got a song out there, #1 on the iTunes charts, called Boycott Target. You guys probably already watched it and loved it and boycotted Target yourself if you're on the right train. Biden is falling asleep in these Maui meetings, and it's just getting worse and worse. We're going to dive right into it. It's always good to be among other fighters in the fight, you know? I know you guys, we do this a lot. We go to other people's shows. We talk about the same things a lot. But the most important thing I try to do in these scenarios is just be as real as possible so everybody gets a chance to see normal people. We didn't all want to do this. That's a story probably about all of us. I have something better to do. You have something better to do.
I was going to say,
our life got derailed by bad governmental policies that are destroying an entire people group, culture, civilization, and destroying the best one that is the most moral in the history of the world. We all got mad about it, and we're fighting it in various different ways. Say what up, guys.
I had nothing better to do. I just want to clarify that. Ross, speak for yourself. I was very bored.
What about you, Kelly? How did you get started in the space?
Oh, I was looking for a fight. No, it came to me. We had a little coffee shop down in Tucson, Arizona, and Pima County literally lied to the public and said we were out of compliance, even though we'd passed our inspection.
Oh.
And we started fighting, and I've just never stopped since then.
And
Wow,
what he means by
awesome.
compliance was out of COVID.
Right.
New bullshit, actual unhelpful compliance.
Oh, they had their silly
Right.
little county declaration, which, by the way, in the title said if 6-foot spacing can't be maintained. So if you could maintain 6-foot spacing, none of it applied. But they sent out their little inspectors to make sure you were, you had the little stickers on the floor saying you had to be 6 feet apart. I knew it was all bullcrap because I was working at the time as editor-in-chief for a national medical publication. However, we wanted to make everybody feel comfortable. So we got our little sticker. It said ready for you on the window, and we got our inspection done. But the chair of the County Board of Supervisors submitted a fake complaint, and they put us on their wall of shame in front of the whole county. And we got so much harassment, fake reviews, death threats, all kinds of things. So,
Which is just
Wow.
crazy, man.
it was that crooked.
And then he went to the actual place to contest it, and didn't talk in a way that they liked, and they arrested him.
Yep. I got invited by one of the county supervisors to go to the public meeting, and I had 3 minutes to talk. 30 seconds in, I had 3 sheriff's officers.
Yeah, because he was cussing, but he was reading the comments from the people that were basically threatening him and his family and his staff because they found out he wasn't in compliance because the state basically, or the government basically ratted on him in a bullshit way anyway, which there's so many levels of this where I'm supposed to slap somebody.
Gosh.
And the bar you have to get past to charge someone with disorderly conduct is I would have had to have been cursing directly at him, calling him an F or, all that.
Right, and he was just reading the
None
comments.
of that happened. In fact, they dropped it pretty soon after because they knew they didn't have it.
Kelly is why I stayed in my house and actually listened to the mandates, because I called my wife. I was like, honey, they're arresting non-threatening white men. Stay in the house. They'll throw my ass in jail. We don't have a shot.
I'm too broad for this.
I'm too proud.
It's bad out here.
Yeah.
I'm only a threat to evil people.
No, that's true. All of us are just patriots that are a threat to this evil corruption. Like, I don't think, could any of us really have pictured ourselves 5 years ago? Let's just call it 7 years ago, because now 5 years is pretty close. 7 years ago, would we ever thought any of us would be sitting right here doing this?
No, I didn't care about politics at all.
No,
Not
I
at
didn't
all,
either.
man.
I cared a little bit, but I wanted to be making money, raising my family, and that's it. I didn't want to be involved in any of this.
Yeah, the extent of my caring about politics was that I thought 9/11 was definitely an inside job, and I didn't know why they did that.
Right.
But I knew it was bullshit from I don't know, probably 15 years ago or something. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. I mean, as soon as you learn about Building 7, you're like, oh,
Right.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and you introduced me to that, so yeah.
Yeah, as soon as you learn about Building 7, you're like, oh, you guys screwed up on this one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who like pulled the plug or like
it's
what.
my favorite
Oh, you
part.
should have pushed that button.
It's
Oh,
my
was
favorite.
it crunk? Wrong lever.
You bring up the Building 7, you're like, Building 7 fell without a plane hitting it. And people are like, what? I'm like, yeah, they said that the fires took that building down. It's like the biggest mess up on the government's part. Like they were planning everything in an Illuminati smoke-filled back room, and they just really messed up when it came to Building 7.
Yeah, their execution just sucked on that.
The
Yeah.
Pennsylvania
I think the
plane?
reason it happened though, Nick, I think the reason they had to rush it was because Donald Rumsfeld came out and said that 3-point-something trillion was missing. And then the next day, right afterwards, that happened. You know, and it hit the exact spot that was in charge of accounting for that mistake.
Yep.
And
Wasn't there
so
one that- a
maybe
plane that-
maybe they didn't have time to make it great, but that's the interesting thing, because then how did they, like, how could they have planned the first two so well, but then the third one just kind of fell stupidly like that?
Yeah.
Because all of them, for those of you who are just listening right now and you don't have any clue what I'm talking about, let me just give you a science experiment real quick right in front of you here that this will make sense to, okay? Plane hit by something up here, right? You would think that if it's going to fall, if it got hit by something up here and it exploded, then it would fall towards the path of least resistance, meaning it would go this way. Or imagine this was the top of it and it got hit right here. Maybe it would go like, you know, this way or something. Instead, it went on itself and perfectly collapsed everything that had the highest amount of resistance underneath of it systematically to perfectly land in its own footprint and only dust. That's crazy. I don't care what you think about any of this. And the fact that it happened to two of them is even crazier, because both buildings did that. And when you look at the history of buildings or skyscrapers that have collapsed because of fires, there's been 3. And all 3 happened that day in New York City. So that's just nuts enough for you to go, oh, well, I guess what happened afterwards? We got a blank check to go tromp around the Middle East and do whatever we wanted to do because the people were pissed. That's what happened. I don't know what else to tell you. What were you saying, Tina?
Oh no, and then there was like a random plane in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that fell in the middle of nowhere.
Right, and they were interviewing farmers, but a lot of, if you look at some of the footage that you can't find nowadays, but there are still some floating out there, and these farmers have on like Carhartts that look like they just ripped the tag off of them and given all these interviews. It was very strange, very strange.
The best interviews were actually of the people, the firefighters and police officers that are like from Jersey or Long Island. And these guys are not conspiracy theorists. They're like, I don't know. It was kind of like an explosion. You saw like each floor was getting
boom, boom,
out.
boom, boom, boom,
boom, boom, boom, boom, boom, boom. And that's
And
what
they were
everybody's
just telling their story.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you had all those people that came out of, I think it was Building 7, that were at the bottom of it that were like, yeah, there's been explosions happening all morning. I had to walk over dead bodies to get out of the building.
Yeah.
And then that guy magically dies. Everybody like magically dies, bro.
Yeah.
Man, it's like they all shit in Clinton's coffee or something. I don't know.
Totally.
Oh, we lost
Kelly,
you, Kelly.
You're muted.
We lost you.
Who would have ever believed this stuff except for what we've seen the past few years? It now suddenly becomes like, yeah, that probably happened the way this government has been.
Yeah. Well, there's so many people. If you think about this, 6 years ago, if you said election fraud, people would have been like, nah, relax. If you would have said the media is cooperating entirely with corrupt interest to mislead you and misinform you about things so that you vote certain ways and you think certain ways, most people 10 years ago would have been like, no. Today, 80% of people know that we're being manipulated highly by the media. And that is a breakthrough, because it's only so much time before you move from the left to the right, because the left isn't a sustainable position. As soon as you embrace like regular components of life, like for example,
not teaching kids about sex.
Well, if you're on the left and you agreed with like everybody should get free welfare stuff because you had like a hard time in your life, like that's a temporary position, because as soon as you arrive at something and then somebody else gets a job that you applied for because of the color of their skin, you know what I mean? You're going to be like, wait a minute. She got it from affirmative action. all right, I don't know if I agree with everything I thought I would agree with. Right. So there's a time limit that it's allowed for radical leftism because it simply doesn't cooperate with actual cognitive, the way the world works. Right. And so I'm really excited about that because which is why they have to go after young people, because old people are too smart to believe dumb shit. Yeah. You know, that's just the way it is. If you're 45 years old, you're like, I've seen like 10 things in my life that turned out to be a lie. So this might be one of them. If you're 20, you're like, I'm hardcore about this. I have to save the planet.
Right.
Literally, these people are like in a cult. That's who's throwing shit on Van Gogh's paintings and all that. It's not 48-year-old men and women that have been through shit.
I've seen plenty of old people though, you know, that are out there.
I was just about to say.
But they're always like single. And they're always like people that are loners and that are like just wackos, or trans people that are, you know.
Well, actually, no.
Most trans people that are like 45 and 50 or whatever,
they're like, fuck this.
Yeah, they're normal. They're like, I'm weird, but that's gay.
That's
you know?
Yeah, they do say that.
By the way, Ross, I texted you a shirt that I made and wore a tank top during that time. I think you'll like it.
Okay.
Well, you can put that up on the screen, but.
I think there's a new voting block, too, that they've kind of discovered on accident, which is, just like Kelly, you said, well, I've seen a lot of older people out there, is the single feminists, whether they be female or male, because we know those male feminists out there just trying to get laid, so they're out there, too, seeing which one they can, and screaming with these blue-haired feminists, and that has become a significant voting block. That's what they said kind of won Biden's whole thing. If we're, you know... let's just saying that the votes that are real, the votes that are real were those feminists that, we know that they'll believe Taylor Swift. We know that during their divorce parties, they're going to, whatever their favorite celebrity, which we've got a hold of most of the celebrities because, what do you call them? Honeypot operations, things like that, Harvey Weinstein type stuff. And
for everybody wondering, honeypot operations is where somebody who wants to control your actions gets you in a compromising situation and records it some way, and then threatens you with compliance to what they want, or they'll expose you and ruin your career and or marriage or whatever the heck. The CIA does it to other countries.
Bread and butter, Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
Jeffrey Epstein did it a lot, but it's not just Jeffrey. You know, it's other entire.
It happens on small levels and grand levels throughout this whole hierarchy that we're discovering. That's, I feel like, this big triangle of government, media, and Hollywood. Hollywood has a very strange connection with the federal government. I find that very disturbing.
Well, that's because they're like the. You know, they are the spellcaster essentially for the entire world. A lot of people watch Hollywood, you know, so they have so much reach that the government needs the big microphone from them to back up what they're saying.
There's a lot of literature about that. There's a lot of literature. Yeah, there's a lot of literature about that. There's a lot of great books about the merge between the CIA and Hollywood and why it was so mandatory because of what Ross just said. You have the influence over the people.
Hey, can you start over, Nick? Start that whole paragraph over.
Yeah. There's a lot of connections between the CIA and Hollywood, and there's a lot of literature about that, a lot of books, and a lot of great reading material because it's essential. The merge between the CIA and Hollywood is absolutely essential because of the power, like Ross just said, that Hollywood has over the people, over the media, over people's minds and what they think. You know, people look to Hollywood to kind of set the trends, and whoever is the biggest celebrity at the time is somebody that they're going to worship and want to be like. So therefore, the CIA kind of teamed up with them to make sure that they're in cahoots, that whatever the CIA, thinking rooms are coming up with are going to, merge with what's being portrayed in a Hollywood movie. And so you're seeing a lot of the plots. You're like, wait a second, this seems like, CIA rhetoric. That's because it is. And so just look into that. You'll find a lot of good reading material about it.
That just brought back a memory.
Do you have any books to suggest for anybody?
Not off the top of my head, but if I went in my library right now, there's like 10 of them.
That does remind me of I had just recently learned the connection between like Charles Manson and the CIA.
Yeah.
Am I correct in saying that? I haven't looked completely into it, but I had just read that is a proven correlation.
It's like almost everything you can name is that. Like every big thing that was like a really terrible event, usually somebody's hand was in it from the government. And that's the crazy thing is like even even just speaking about Maui, look at the Las Vegas shooting. right in Las Vegas, where like some of the biggest crimes happened, where apparently the amount of rounds that they said that he shot was impossible for a single man to shoot. Like there's just so much about it. Like they basically saying that he shot this many times, but it was impossible for that to have occurred because he would have to be reload. Like he would have to be doing like he would have to be so skilled at it. And there was just no way that he was capable of doing that.
Can you just put a switch on it?
No, his wasn't a switch if you listen to the audio of it.
Yeah,
so
I don't know
there's a
enough
lot of
about
stuff
it,
that doesn't make sense about the whole entire story. Well, the person that was the head of the investigation component of that, as far as I understand it, and I could be semi-inaccurate about this, but it was the same sheriff who's over Maui now in that exact district.
real?
The exact person. Right? And so it's like, who gave him that outpost?
How do normal people not find this quite... This is so... I didn't know that.
I mean, if you're not a conspiracy theorist, you at least gotta say that's weird.
That's weird.
Come
that
on,
is
man.
Very strange.
Like, how do we have these? Anyway.
Well, and with that leads me to this. What do you guys, Kelly? I'll ask you because you had talked about the critical drinker. So now with these strikes, writers and now Actors Guild has joined.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. Burn it all down. I don't care. I don't care about you getting paid. They're all like, the writers, they're not being paid, guys. It's like, stop writing these awful movies. And maybe I might support you.
I'm with you, but their argument, and I made a video about this because I was like, too bad, I'm happy it's burning down. Because I am happy it's burning down. But the way that it's burning down sucks it helps Hollywood the most and hurts the people the worst.
That's true.
Yeah.
So it's like they basically said, hey, everything moved to like streaming, and like instead of getting $3,000 per time that X thing happens, they get $300 now instead of $3,000 when X thing happens. And so instead of them getting like a royalty check of like $8,000 a month, if like their movie's really popping, they're getting like, $500 or something a month instead because of new streaming rules or whatever. And it's like, what, that flip? And the other thing is they're capturing people's likeness on AI as well. And they're doing something called proprietary like purchases or something like that, where they're basically saying, hey, stand in front of the camera. Here's $100,000. We took images of your face and we get to use you how we see fit in the future digitally with or without your help.
Right.
And so like, that's another thing they don't get paid on either. And so anyway, there's a bunch of this stuff that they're getting frustrated about. Plus the story writing is AI as well.
Right.
So they're able to just be
that.
like, make the story.
Yeah, we know that. But what were you saying, Kelly?
Oh, I was saying I saw that the actor who played Shazam basically made a statement saying, stop watching this garbage that Hollywood's putting out. I thought that was really, really interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
I don't know what the context was, but I have to agree with him. It's a bunch of
What
trash.
is Shazam?
Shazam.
Yeah,
Shazam.
I don't remember the actor's name, but the
Zachary
one
Levi?
there you go.
Yeah. Who am I crazy in remembering?
So Zachary Levi said, don't watch the stuff the government puts out?
No, he said don't
Hollywood.
watch. He basically said there's a lot of junk and trash coming out of Hollywood. Stop watching bad movies.
He's like, I'm part of a lot of it, but don't watch it.
Right. Yeah, he was Chuck.
Don't watch Shazam. It's garbage.
There's a film called The Congress starring Robin Wright and Harvey Keitel. It came out, I want to say, maybe 12, 13 years ago. And the premise is Robin Wright comes in and she plays herself. And there's television producers that are there. They say, listen, your career's done. You're never going to play the Princess Bride again. You're never going to be that young. And what we want to do is we want to have you come in and have this machine take images of you. It's an AI machine, and it'll basically be able to portray you younger, older, etc. You sign this contract, and you'll never have to work again, and you can just kind of go on and live your life. So Robin Wright signs the contract, and she does they're like, laugh, and she laughs, and they're like, give us a crying face. She gives all of her faces, and she basically sells herself to this major motion picture company. And then
like an awesome movie.
Yeah, it's really great, and it was before its time. And so the next thing that happens is that she's done an acting, and she gives herself to this company, and they use her just like they're using. They just made Harrison Ford look 27 in the new Indiana Jones. Right. And so when I saw this movie, I was like, I turned to my friends, I was like, bro, this is going to happen. Like they're telling us right now, this is pre-predictive programming at its finest. And I guarantee you, we're going to see this shit in the next 15, 20 years. And that's exactly what's happening now. So if you've never seen that movie, go check it out. It's called The Congress.
Totally. No, thank you.
The Congress.
The Congress. Yeah, write that down. I want to watch this. Oh, that's really
sure.
fascinating.
We should do a I would say a
Like a
family night
review.
where we all watch a movie, but our kids are too young to give a rip about this show.
Right, they wouldn't care. No, that is a fascinating. Yeah, it's wow. They're sitting there telling us, huh?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
one thing I wanted to know, guys, because we were talking about the lockdowns and the masking and everything. Uh, when this first happened, some people got it. Some very few people stood up to it. They were the early adopters. They were the Marines that went in and cleared the beaches for everybody else, right? Okay. So I'm not talking about people who said, "Well, I'm just not going to go to this store anymore because they require masks." I'm talking about people who took a hard stand. Like I walked through
I
the
walked into
tape
places.
at
Yep.
Walmart twice. I'm like, I'm not going to be crowd. Snap. They didn't like it too much, but
Yep.
so there were those early people. Some of them got arrested. I think of like Ian Smith. I forget the name of the lady who had the hair salon and she ripped up.
Lindsey Graham, Patriot
No, not
Army.
Lindsay, but Lindsay was one of them. Yes, but there
There's
was
a
another
couple
one
of
down
them.
in Dallas.
Yeah.
Anyway, so these people stood up when the cost was highest.
Mhm.
And after they did that, it started to be a lower cost. It was less risky to go in. So I was at that time, I wanted people to stand the hell up like hard because do this now while it's young before they get more and more control. Now they're talking about doing this again. What the hell are people going to do now? What's your excuse?
They're going. I don't know. It's so.
Are they going to
Kelly,
comply?
I'm so
Because
glad.
I hope not.
I think I don't know. I don't know. I hope not because I said the same thing. The thing is that I try to tell people, like as Cubans, we were trying to when Chavez came into power, we were trying to tell the Venezuelans, oh, they're changing stuff, and the Cubans were saying, listen, guys, that's looking a little fishy, and the Venezuelans thought it couldn't happen to them. They thought it couldn't happen to them. I say the same thing to Americans here. You think it can happen here, and it can. It can because we the people, like, we will it. Like, that's why it works different here. And that's why, like, my family and other families, we risk our lives to come here. Because...
Tú eres cubana.
Yes.
Yo soy cubano.
Oh, you're Cuban? Oh, my gosh.
Trans-cubano.
Oh, okay.
I'm becoming Cuban. No, I'm just, that's a dumb
No.
joke. I use that as trans-Chinese, whatever. But no, you're right. It in every one of these countries, I wrote an article on this some time ago, really toward the beginning of this, and I called it How to Murder Millions. And I talked about how the government gets control and democide occurs. What democide is basically killing your own people. And every single one of those countries thought it can't happen here. We're too civilized.
Yep.
And we think that here. And it bugs the hell out of me because some people are just like, yeah, it's all going to blow over. No, it's not. We're far down a path, and you better start fighting now.
When they
I don't
think
mean
that
with guns.
What's
I mean
on your mind, Nick?
standing up.
Well, to normal people like the three of us or four of us on this conversation, we're all like, oh yeah, we're not going to fall for that shit again. But we're talking about sheep. That's why I said, these people are going to go along with it. And that's why I'm like, I'm excited. I'm excited just to go outside and just see them all fall for the same trick again and have absolutely, no idea that this is like, a government controlled thing, that they're trying to separate the people. Divide and conquer is the greatest strategy used by any military action on the face of the planet. And we're letting it happen. So yes. I'm like, look, they deserve what they're getting. If they're going to go along with the second mandates and the second mask thing, I'm like, you guys, you can't be helped.
Yeah, but, I think that they've screwed up here. I think that because there's too many people. If you would think about how everybody started out in the same pot. Oh my God, COVID's happened. I guess we should try to be careful a little bit. Yeah. So everybody's in that same pot. I sprayed my shoes with Lysol for like 3 days. And then I was like, this is a little dumb, But so, when as soon as I said 2 weeks to slow the spread, I was like all in for that 2 weeks. I was like, I better be careful.
Right, yeah.
So I was in a little pod, and then within a week or two, I was out of the pod, and I was like, that was a dumb pod, and then everybody that got out of the pod that was penalized for not being in the pod, and ideologically became more and more and more obnoxious and more angry and more educated and more entrenched in their position and with clarity, right? And so that didn't stop. I'm still vibrating at the same pace that I was during the last lockdown as far as my pissed level. And then if you institute anything over again, now instead of starting from a 0 because I'm in the pod and slowly working up my anger, I'm starting at a 9. Like, you're toast, bro. I'll be so obnoxious. Literally every mask that I see, I'll go, hey, I don't want to be rude, but I got to stop you for a second and just let you know. Here's the industrial hygienist information about that. Here's what the CDC says about that. Here's what every single country in Europe looked like without mask mandates, and here's what they look like with them.
Yeah.
And just, like, I refuse to go through stupidity twice. And I think all of us and everybody around us is going to be so much more amped up. This is going to cause either a mass awakening or a massive divorce in some kind of way that's even worse than before. But they're going to be calling us murderers again and grandma killers, even though they took their damn masks off for 2 years and weren't wearing them, but nobody gave a rip now. You know, anyway, go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to those people, sorry, I have an itch here. You know, there's two kinds of people. My wife hated that stuff. She rant and rail about it, but you know, she's a little more delicate than I am. We'd go to a store or restaurant and they'd say, you need to have a mask. And she'd get angry and go into the car and sometimes cry because she was so sick of it. I'd stand there and say, no, you are going to serve me. No, sir, you need to leave. Well, we're going to call the police. Okay, call the police then. But there's no civil rights free zone in this country that I know of. You know, I took a hard stand because I knew exactly what was happening. And this is the brilliance of the thing. They suddenly make you out to be the bad guy because, oh, you're endangering everyone. No, we weren't. And, you know, I'm a scientist. I worked in this field. I understand it. And I had people who couldn't even write a complete sentence telling me how to live my life. It was ridiculous. So I'm hoping this time, I went, maybe I'm not proud of this. Maybe it was a mistake, but I went into a Goodwill one time. I'm a Goodwill junkie. And I found this little plastic shovel and rake for my kids for their sandbox. And I didn't wear a mask. I wasn't going to wear a mask. I went up to buy it and they said, well, we're not going to sell it to you. Why? You don't have a mask on. I said, it doesn't matter. I said, there's no law. And we had this little argument. So they said, well, no, they just refused. So I just walked out with them. I said, no, all right. Well, I came here to shop, lay a couple bucks down on the counter and walk out, you know? And I think this is the kind of thing we need to do. It's gotten ridiculous. Like, you are going to serve me. Like, at some point, people sat at that lunch counter. They sat on the front seat of the bus and they said, not doing it. And I hope people have that kind of courage, because it really doesn't take courage to say, well, I'm going to go shop somewhere else. They don't care. Right. Stay there. Go to the airport. You know, Ian Smith, he would go onto the airport. David Harris Jr. go on the airport without a mask.
Our friend Mitch Aguirre, he's an MMA fighter, ex-Navy SEAL. Yeah. Same thing. He wouldn't put it on the mask. He wouldn't do it.
And that's why I try to make like and pro-patriotic stuff, so that when people get out of that Walmart or Target, for instance, they can get in the car and they can listen to something that is just as agitated as they felt by being told that they have to wear a mask, or, you know, just the fact that we're telling people what you have to wear in this country. It's like, it feels like slavery. It's like, it's not far from like, you know, Massa, can I take my chains off? It's like, we're not far from that. You know what I mean?
But meanwhile, you have the feminists out here that they want to walk around topless without even nipple pasties, and we're not supposed to tell them what to put on, right?
Or these gay men with their dinglings hanging out
with their thongs on. We're not supposed to tell them what to put on, right? But you're telling me to put an article on my face to impede my breathing.
And you know, people said this isn't my hill to die on. I say, you know what my hill to die on was? When they said order, when they said mandate, when they started telling me I had to do things that weren't law. That was my hill to die on, because it doesn't matter what it is. It could be wearing a mask, it could be taking your guns, it could be taking your children. And look, if you would have said back then, hey, they're going to start cutting the giblets off of kids, and then they're going to pass laws in states where if you don't allow your kids to do this, they'll take your kids away. What? Shut up. It's just a mask. No, this is what we're being conditioned for. Look at how far it's come.
100%.
Right.
And
you've got to find your
back down. If you back down now, you're not going to last in the future anyway. You might as well when before the fire gets too hot, dude. You know, you don't want to be firing squad day. You need to start standing up now so that shit doesn't happen. You know, and it's just unacceptable. You don't get to tell Americans what we have to put on our face, especially when you can't even prove the science. And even if you could prove the science,
and not only can they not prove the science, it's being debunked.
Yeah, well, of course it's been debunked. But even if it wasn't, you're not allowed to say to a person, because you might carry the flu or might spread the flu, you can't go into Walmart.
Yeah.
That's not something we can do. For the human history in the United States of America, we essentially have a basic ideology, and that is you don't get to say because you might harm somebody, you're not allowed to do certain things.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
Look at what happened with the E. coli. Do you guys remember? This was, 12 years ago. The E. coli nurse. Do you guys remember her? A bunch of doctors from Doctors Without Borders. There was an E. coli outbreak. They didn't realize they had it. One doctor died here, and then there was a nurse that was with that group, and they were like, hey, she probably effing has it. She needs to be quarantined, and she refused. She was all over the news. You can look this up. It was somewhere in up north in Connecticut, Massachusetts, something like that. There was pictures of her riding her bike, completely ignoring the quarantine. Everybody was up in arms, but guess what? Nobody made her.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the case, it's like, shouldn't we ban half of West Hollywood gays who have AIDS from going inside of Walmart? I hate to be that guy, but I'm like, I'm much more afraid of catching that shit than I am for a cold that's going to last me 2 weeks and give me the sniffles.
And California just changed a law that now it's not illegal to not disclose your HIV status if you if you give your partner HIV and you did not disclose it to him, and now they're sick with HIV for the rest of their life, which is a death sentence, they don't get in trouble anymore. It used to be a crime. It used to be like, no, you have to disclose your HIV status.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah. You could really just...
They took it away. I mean,
that's like a death sentence.
Mm-hmm. You can just willy-nilly give it to people and not tell them, and they get sick and die, and you're not responsible.
Whoops.
All of those things are not the government's concern. They're really pushing this because this is an agenda. This is something they're behind. This is something that's funded, in my opinion, by other foreign countries, China, and a lot of people who have big money, big power, and smoke-filled back rooms, who want to start deteriorating the American freedom from the inside. And this is a perfect way to do it. People are not trusting each other. The Big Brother idea is already happening.
Absolutely.
We're policing each other. It's 1984, George Orwell all over again. So
you can read the Chinese Communist Party's guidebook. It's called Unrestricted Warfare, and they talk about using this kind of tactic. And there was a woman on the Epic Times. She was on American Thought Leaders with Yanya Kellick. And she was in the pharmaceutical industry, and she had just retired when all this happened. She came back because she was appalled. She said the mRNA vaccines, the mRNA technology has been demonstrated and proven in military applications, but never health. And she said it is so easy to take a snippet out of the RNA, insert another code in, and put it into people. And now, look, this sounds like crazy science fiction, but they have GMO mosquitoes now, and there's talk about having these mosquitoes vaccinate people. What?
Right.
I saw that.
What?
Yeah, Bill Gates released like 600,000 or something in Florida.
I saw that.
I think there's an opportunity right now, honestly.
Of course. And then we should eat those bugs, of course.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Instead of a steak.
Those are the best bugs.
Steak will be illegal.
Yeah,
we're getting there.
I think what's happened with the whole steak and eat the bug situation and meat and them trying to get rid of like meat altogether, I think it's because you can't get certain bad things that they want to put in you if it goes through an animal first and it goes into their meat. There's like such thing as like a blood-brain barrier. So if you imagine all the grain in the world is like terrible for you, right? But it might taste good, whatever. But it's terrible for you, causes like problems in your body, right? Okay. So you don't eat any grain, but you eat meat. Well, so that cow eats the grain, but it can't pass to you the same detriment of what it ate through its meat. So I think there's some there's some fail-safe components of eating meat that kind of provide a filter to us, and they want to remove that filter so they can do direct to us the way that they want to. And I think God's creation is getting in the way of that, to be frank, you know, and the same thing with the sun. They're trying to block out the sun.
I saw that.
And they're talking about how they can do it. And they're trying to give us different types of water, different types of rain. And I think Harvard or I don't know which magazine just released this about fluoride in the tap water, and it's like no amount of it is safe, basically, is what they've said now, have concluded. And that means everybody who's drinking tap water probably for the last like 60 years is just screwed. Go ahead.
Have you seen, you might have seen this, Kelly, Nicole Kidman did this thing where they're trying to encourage people to eat bugs. So they had a couple celebrities. I just remember Nicole Kidman because she couldn't even pretend how disgusting it was. Trying to encourage us.
It is disgusting. And bugs have this chitinous exoskeleton. It's like kind of similar to your fingernails and hair, but
Right.
that's
No,
really hard for the
keratin.
body to digest. I mean, talk about the reptile dysfunction again. If you keep lizards and reptiles, you know that like you can only feed them so many mealworms
Yep.
because that chitin on the outside will jam up their digestive system. So we're supposed to be eating that stuff. By the way, shameless plug here, realfreedomtalk.com. I interviewed Alex Newman, who's an amazing award-winning journalist, researcher. He does a lot with the Epic Times. He goes to all these World Economic Forum events and things. He's brilliant. And we talked about global warming. And so that's going to run Thursday. We're going to have it up on realfreedomtalk.com. You can also go to Rumble. But that's really, really good because I'm actually an environmental scientist. I got my master's degree from New Mexico State University in environmental science. I trained under the U.S. Department of Defense in environmental remediation. So I know all about the carbon cycle, all these nutrient cycles and everything. I was in the range science department. I know a bit about animals. So, and Alex, he's up on the politics of this. I think you guys, it's a fantastic show. And Alex is just great. So shameless plug there.
I just got an image of like Nicole Kidman's agent being like, dig deep, Nicole. I need you to know eating the
That's
bug.
awesome.
Look, Ross is bringing it up
Look,
for
I
us.
brought it up.
Oh, awesome.
I am going to eat a 4-course meal of bugs. I am here to reveal my hidden talent, eating micro livestock, hornworms.
Dude, pause. She looks so old.
I mean,
does.
she is.
Comparatively.
I'm not
Okay,
going to blame
I'm
her
hitting
for
play.
aging.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They're still alive.
Oh, gosh.
Extraordinary.
Botox couldn't
Very
hide that.
moist, chewy. Can't quite describe the flavor, but need a little water. Let's try
Need a little water. Need a little water.
Just stop.
the second course.
Stop already.
Dig deep, Nicole.
Just a little
This is why
side
Eyes
note.
Wide Shut
2
didn't
billion
get a
people in the world
sequel.
eat bugs, and I'm one of them. Because here we go. Have some mealworms.
Nick's commentary in the background.
I need you to find
Telling you,
yourself.
I'm a survivor. That is a fruity taste. I'd
Millions
recommend
of men no longer want to make out with
Oh.
Nicole Kidman.
it. Nothing. Oh, awesome.
I say men.
Like nothing you've ever tasted. Like a hairy nut. Don't. Oh my gosh. A nut from the shell.
I guess if you
And
saw
now,
Eyes Wide
just
Shut,
keeps
you
trying
know
to-
about hairy nuts.
She just
Beside grasshopper. These
she just keeps trying to wink.
are amazing. These are exquisite grasshoppers. I recommend them to anyone. Thank you for spending so much time with me and watching.
Yeah,
Did
I
you
don't
see-
believe it. We can just show the first little clip of that, Jeff.
Was I
whenever we put
crazy,
it through.
guys? Like, she was trying, but she couldn't hide it. There was a couple, twinges there. Like, like, that was so funny. Nick going, dig deep, Nicole. This is why Eyes Wide
then-
Shut didn't get a sequel.
And then he like lies to her. He's like, Kate Winslet eats 4 grasshoppers before every shot. And that's why you're not doing well right now.
Makes her a little jumpy.
Hey, boom.
That was too easy, dad joke. When you become a dad, every joke's a dad joke.
It's true. It's true. No, that was awesome. I appreciate, what? In this vulgar world where I can't escape vulgarity, I appreciate dad jokes and corny things now so much more. See, before it was hard to find
Dad
that
jokes
stuff.
make the world go round. Yep.
Remember, it was hard to find that stuff. Like, even like boys when they were like, in their teens trying to watch the scratchy pay-per-view after midnight type shit, trying to see, was that an areola? I don't know. Like that was, see, he remembers.
Oh, that was me. That was me.
But like, it was hard to really kind of find vulgarity in our society because we protected that as like, no, that's stuff behind closed doors or appropriate areas.
Right.
And now it's so much the opposite
Right.
that it's like
everywhere.
I seek
And then
out
when you
Yeah,
see
you have
something
to-
innocent and corny
love it.
and cliche, you're like, oh, good. Aw, the father's walking with his son. That touches my heart.
or like a dad joke, or even like a bad like white old dad rapper doing like a set on TikTok. I'm like, you go talking about doing your gutters and your garbage.
We have so many of the founding fathers who said some variation of only a virtuous people can be free. And the idea of freedom is that we're self-governing. And when we're not self-governing, it's an opportunity for tyrants to come in and impose martial law. It's how it works. And look at the chaos that's going on right now. The people in charge love it. They don't love the left. They don't love the homosexual community. These are means to an end. These people create chaos. They break down society. But believe me, because like the Soviet Union at first, when they were coming into power, they legalized homosexuality and abortion. And once they came into power, they made it illegal again and started persecuting them.
I
It's a
didn't
means
know
to
that.
an end. So if you're watching Ross's show, and by the way, lefties, you should be watching Ross's show because you need a sense of humor. This is what they're doing. They're going to have you for dessert. They're using you. They're gonna devour you too.
Yeah, it's you create the chemical agent that causes the problem, basically, and then once the problem's gone, what do you get rid of? The thing
They're
that
gonna
causes
devour
the
you
problem.
like a mealworm.
We
man.
need stability now. Okay, we made it unstable, destroyed it, took it over. Now we need stability again. So we got to get rid of all the radicals. That's just it's math.
That's how it is. Well,
It's
they don't
just
want
math.
those revolutionaries getting mad at them too. Same thing
Right.
happened
Right.
in Cuba. As soon as they were done with them,
And what you learn is the CIA is pretty much in charge of like every major governmental change in the last like 60 years. It's like, oh, that place used to have this and used to have that. Well, how's Gaddafi? How's, all these different places. When you look into it, man, I mean, heck, even the Middle East, dude, like when we're supposed to go over there to, rid the world of terrorism, which is just obvious now that you look back at it, you're like, oh, you just wanted a blank check so you weren't have to be tied down to one particular country of
Right.
ruining. That makes sense. Okay. That's why it needs to be a war on terrorism instead of a guy, we're going after these particular people. Like, just think about it. Somebody hit our towers with 2 planes and we're like, that's it. 20-year war. It's like, all right. What did y'all really want to do? Because this has nothing to do with this,
Yeah, because when you're searching and fighting against terrorism, it's like the war on drugs. It's like you're never going to find that one person. You're just looking for, nothing basically. And so you have a bunch of people smoking them out of their holes, looking in caves for absolutely nothing. And the American people are like, oh, we're gonna find who? Who are you looking for? So it's just
it's this.
no end.
Jeff made a good point. He just texted me. He said, "Yeah, it's just like globalism and like climate change and terror and COVID. All of it is close your eyes and give us your money."
or it's this entity. They don't have a specific. It's this entity.
I'm feeling a certain way. The government can solve it. Fix it with my money and permission to do whatever you want to do.
Right.
Oh, that means lockdowns. Oh, that means you're not allowed to attend your parents' funeral. Oh, that means they die alone. Bro, that was the most egregious thing.
Yeah.
The most egregious thing about all of COVID-19. I'll say it like this. If any other person on the planet told you better stand behind 20 feet away from your mother while she takes her last breaths,
That's what happened.
they are evil. Period. Period. I don't care. You think COVID is worse than me not being able to hold my dying mother's hand? You're sick. And these people did this on so many scales. They did it to funerals where me and you played the video.
Yes, we
of
did.
when there was a funeral going on in the UK or
were
whatever
trying to comfort.
of a husband, and the children see their mom weeping and they're all 5 feet apart in their own chairs, and they move their chair so they can put their arm on their mother. And then the other son moves his chair, and it was too much commotion for the funeral director. He comes from behind the screen or whatever, goes, no, separates them during a funeral, bro.
Stops the service.
Stops a sacred ritual ceremony that we have had for the longest time. For what? The state? Bro, could you fit any more cock in your mouth, you pussy? Sorry. What a freaking loser. What a loser, bro. Like the funeral director. To think that was appropriate to do, you have to be such a subservient little bitch in other categories of your life to just roll into that and to let that be something that you let destroy a pivotal point in all of those people's lives, saying goodbye to a loved one. And instead, you're going to let family die alone in the hospital. Do you remember seeing the 3-month time lapses of the people that were 60 and 70 that were in nursing homes, and then COVID lockdowns hit, and then 3 months later, they had aged 15 years. They got skinnier. They got more braille. A lot of them are in wheelchairs after that 3-month period because they just... all you have is how you're connected to people in life. And when you take that away, you die. And they took that away. Could you imagine living 70, 80 years of your life, giving everything you have to your kids, and at the moment you're leaving, you don't even get to say goodbye because of some stupid rule? Evil, bro. There is nothing to describe it. It is crimes against humanity, bro.
100%.
And I want to point out, these guys behind me, the founding fathers, they met to draft the Declaration of Independence to forge this new country when smallpox was going on, dysentery, cholera, all these things. they didn't wear masks. They didn't cower at home. They just knew that sickness is a part of life, survival of the fittest. And look, the thing about COVID that we all know is, and look, we knew this from the beginning because I was doing 3-hour webinars with some of the nation's top doctors before most people even knew about this virus. The death rate was always going to be low, and it was mostly going to affect the elderly, the people with pre-existing conditions. So how have we become so pussified that these guys can forge the birth of a new nation with, I mean, smallpox makes COVID look like nothing.
Yeah.
And yet we're going to be little weenies and drive our cars with masks on. Like, what's happened to the American people? Fortunately, it's not
the thing that nobody has really talked about in correlation with COVID and mask mandates and letting your elders die and all that stuff is the Bohemian Grove ceremony. That's an annual ceremony of our world leaders, everybody, presidents, the CEOs of companies, Fortune 500 companies, billion-dollar heads of companies come together right here in California in the Redwoods and have an annual ceremony called the Cremation of Care. And what that is people are literally they're emulating their care. What they do is they gather all of their cares and all of their worries, and they sacrifice their cares to a deity named Moloch. And so what they're doing basically, essentially, is getting rid of any cares that they might have for all of the terrible, nefarious actions that they're about to take and push onto the world. So when you're talking to a normal person, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that. My loved one, this, that, and the third. But that's because you have care with what I like to call a capital C, care with a capital C. Most people don't have that because they're getting their way of life from these world leaders who are literally emulating their care. So if you don't know about Bohemian Grove, if you don't know about the cremation of care, look into that and kind of get some information about that. It'll really help you to understand why this world is so evil today. There you go. There's a great image of Obama, at the sacrifice. And this is something that happens every year. We've had a lot of protesters outside now who actually know that this is happening and try to stop this from happening. But this is where the world stage is set. These are the people that are planning it. This is the ideology and where it's born. So if we really want to do something, that's the place to start it, because anything that happens there is going to happen, for us in the next 6 to 12 months.
Just for the record, the fact check on that said it wasn't Obama, so that we don't get pulled down.
Oh, okay.
It was Michelle,
so
actually.
What do you think, Nick, then, you're in the music space and I guess industry type of thing, so you have to know other people that's gotten like sucked in and stuff like that. Isn't that another kind of branch of the Hollywood machine as well? What do you see in the music industry as far as like pushing this evil agenda, like these, like I was saying, all entertainment, rap and songs and stuff like that? What are you seeing over there?
100%. It's really why I kind of shifted gears, and I was luckily saved, and it just completely transpired everything that I was doing, which was very satanic. I did a lot of satanic records, a lot of satanic music. I've worked with artists like Snoop Dogg, French Montana, YG, all these guys. And at the end of the day, what I found is, Hollywood is just the name of it comes from a holly tree, which is what the Druids used to use to make broomsticks for witches. So Hollywood in general, the actual name is satanic. The actual name is about witchcraft. And everything is about cursing and spells and rites and writing, and all this stuff is satanic. So that's something that I found in my journey in Hollywood, which really helped me to gain this information so that I could, turn towards the right path. I make a lot less money than I used to, but the spiritual currency that I've gotten from God is
your soul is saved.
Absolutely, it's been worth every dollar. So, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of sacrifices. There's a lot of people that are willing to sacrifice themselves to get.
I was just about to say so these people are willing. They know that this is evil, because a lot of these black rappers and stuff like that grew up in Christian household, or at least some sort of Christianity around them, because that's in that community. And so, but they're still willing
Yeah, especially in the hip hop community. I was just talking about this on another podcast. In the hip hop community, what you have are people, a lot of African American people that come from, terrible places, the projects and stuff. And what they're worshiping, who they're looking up to, are people that got out of the projects and were able to fix their lives. So what they're looking for is to change, to emulate that. They're trying to find, how do I do that? And so the Illuminati, Freemason, secret societies, they prey on hip hop in particular because country music stars, they have money. Their family owns a farm or something. They don't really need to sacrifice themselves in the way that hip hop artists do. So they really prey upon, I don't want to just say the black community, but let's just say the hip hop community, in the sense where they know they can pull this kid in. He's from the projects. He's got no money. He's willing to do anything to make it.
Right.
And so you see a lot of prominence of Illuminati symbolism and hand signs and stuff in the hip hop community because a lot of those people came from nothing and really needed something.
That's what I think is happening with what's his name, Meek Mill. Meek Mill has been doing, the last couple years, I've been side-eyeing him a lot. He's been caught at like these billionaires' homes, and like him and his posse are just sitting there entertaining. It's very strange, very strange.
The truth is, once you know their name, you know that they did something terrible. That's the truth.
Really?
I said this the other day. I was like, look, the FBI's hit list is now the credit list for the Oscars. It's the credit list for the Grammys. If you walk on that red blood carpet, if you even get there, you've done something deplorable to reach to this club of 500 million.
And like what?
I mean,
what have you heard they've done?
I mean, I don't know how uncensored we can be here on the Ross the Boss show.
As uncensored as you want to be, Beat. I want to know.
Yeah, I mean,
what's one that you know happened for sure?
I mean,
that's pretty appalling.
Adrenochrome is popping in these streets, man. If you guys don't know about adrenochrome, definitely look into that. My boy Jim Caviezel talked a lot about that. I thought they were going to put it in the Sound of Freedom movie, but I think they probably would have censored it if so. But adrenochrome is one of the biggest things happening behind the scenes in Hollywood, and that's the blood of children. So, you know what I mean? Like, we're talking about the most deplorable people who are trying to outdo each other as far as evil goes, to work up to that higher level. You know what I mean? They're coming down from the Rockefellers. They're coming down from the DuPonts. And as they come down, you reach the lower levels of people who are like, Nicki Minaj and Lady Gaga, who you see, taking a bloodbath and this, that, and the third.
Yeah.
They're trying to outdo and impress the people at the top of these lists. So, once I kind of saw that behind the scenes in Hollywood, I was like, man, I really don't have this in me. You know what I mean?
How did you see that behind the scenes?
I'm pretty sure you can't tell us too much stuff right now over the airwaves.
I try not to say too much just to protect myself and my family, but
Absolutely.
I'll say this. At the end of the day, the after parties in Hollywood, and the behind the scenes of Hollywood is some of the scariest, most evil things you'll ever see in your life.
Really?
And if you see that kind of stuff, your best bet is to get out as fast as you can, because the moment that you abide by something, the moment that you're like, okay, I'm okay with this, it's just an upward battle towards the worst stuff you've ever seen. So for me, I was lucky enough to where I really never made it to the top of the pyramid, and the stuff that I saw even at the lower levels was enough for me to turn around, get out, and by the grace of God, I was saved. So
we're glad to have you here with us.
The trans movement is something that I was told about way before. I was on a TV show on Bravo in 2011, and that was kind of like my foot into the industry. And the stuff that I was told behind the scenes was that the trans movement was coming, and that the new age movement was coming, and that they were going to blur the gender lines. And you would walk down the street in 10 years and not be able to tell if it was a boy or a girl. It's 2023, and I'm like, we are freaking here right now. Yeah. So these people know what's going to happen. They don't guess, and they don't check the news to see what's going to happen.
Right. They set the tone.
Yeah, they're setting the tone. They're predicting it, pre-predictive programming, and a lot of money goes behind this stuff. A lot of these people that are talking, they really walk the talk. They have, a lot of money and a lot of power. I would say that if you look into the families who run the music industry, so it's not just the person who's 35, 36, it's their dad. It's their grandfather. Okay. Perfect examples, like look at Prescott Bush. Prescott Bush is a Nazi who was involved with the Trading with the Enemy Act. So his grandson, George W., is trying to impress him. He's trying to outdo his evil. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the same vibe in the music industry.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah, you know that she's not a rapper. She was on blew up on social media. The white girl that has
Bad Baby.
No, the other white girl that has the black scent.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know her name, but I know who you're talking about.
Vicky?
The girl who went.
Whoa, Vicky.
Yeah, Whoa, Vicky.
Whoa, Vicky had a Say Cheese interview where she had said, and it just sounded so far-fetched, but now, this was a while ago, but now that I know everything that I know, she said that they wanted a drop of her blood before this party, and they wanted
she
to
had
take
to
the
leave her
phone.
cell phone.
What she said, I'm not doing that, and I left. She said, I'm saved by the blood of Jesus Christ. I'm not doing that, and I left my friends there, and we left. But she talked about her friend, also in the entertainment
Blood is very
industry,
important.
she wanted so bad to be in that party,
Right.
and she said, "Come on, Vicky, please," and she's like, I'm not staying.
Yeah, she actually mentioned Jesus. She's like, nah, I know some Jesus. I know about Jesus or something. She's the blood of Jesus.
Yeah, the blood is very important. It's the lifeline. It's your DNA. It's genetics. These people really, they're like scientists. So the blood is very important, which is why you hear about things like adrenochrome and blood sacrifices, and Lady Gaga taking a blood bath in a Scottish Freemason chapel. It's like at the end of the day, this stuff is very important to them. They're not playing around.
No, which you thought you don't. It sounds so unbelievable.
I watched something from I think it was the Australian X Factor. I forgot the names. I forgot the guy's name. It was like Alexis Kraft something. Anyway, he broke down it's like a 5-hour YouTube video that's still up, and he breaks down all of the entire process of how they recruit you, where all these stuff comes from in Freemasonry, how it's very much connected to the Church of Satan and satanic rituals. Like the witchcraft, the books of witchcraft are written with the same terminology as the Freemason handbook. They go hand in hand basically, but the people in the Freemasonry don't know it until they get to the top level, and then they go, oh, the illuminator or the person that you're pursuing the light of is actually Lucifer or Satan or whatever. And it's a whole big thing, but he breaks it down for like 5 hours.
So you're saying like witchcraft and the Satan stuff is like this?
Yes.
It's like one and the same?
Witchcraft and Freemasonry and like Satanism, like it's all connected.
This makes sense then. Okay, because I was wondering, I kind of just went down a rabbit hole one time on TikTok. I noticed there is an insane amount of tarot card, witch reading type stuff being pushed. It was being pushed and when I looked at some of these videos, I mean, some of them had a significant amount of views and likes and people going, oh yeah, this is my star sign, whatever.
Yeah.
And
from a biblical framework, anything that's not Holy Spirit giving any kind of whatever is demonic.
Right.
It just is, right? There's nothing else. There's no other God you're allowed to chat with. There's no other deity or anything.
Not even like the dead.
No mediums, nothing, or else it is demonic, right? There's no middle ground for it. So, but if you're just in the world and you're like, I don't care what the Bible has to say, that's fine. I'm going to tell you, inside of witchcraft and inside of Freemasonry and inside of every other little schism that you can think of, behind it is the same dude. His name's Lucifer,
that makes
bro.
sense then. Yep. That really makes sense.
Yeah, if you look at like the latest Disney movies, what they're doing now is they're trying to turn your kids into witches and warlocks. So you have Harry Potter, you have pretty much every princess story, there's always a witch, there's always some magic. There's always some coercion that's happening to try to get you to be indoctrinated to like witchcraft. What they're doing is they're trying to make witchcraft cool. They're trying to make your kids fight with you if you have a problem with them walking through the house with their wand and trying to become Harry Potter. So, and that's been really within the past 10, 15 years. Disney movies had that kind of a vibe that had some magic, but it was never like, oh, your lead character is the witch and your lead character that your kid wants to be like and dress up like is the warlock. And so what they're trying to do is get them at a very young age to think that witchcraft is cool. And it's happening. It's happening in the music industry, but it's really happening in the movie industry right now.
Well, think about Dexter too, the show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's not like witchcraft, but it's just massive desensitization to murder.
That's true.
And ritual murder.
Yeah.
Ritual murder.
That's
you
a
know?
good point. Ritual.
And so it's like there's like you're learning about it. You're watching the blood get spilt of a person, and you're kind of thinking about it differently than you ever thought about it before. I watched like 5 seasons of it, and by 5th season, I'm like, interesting. Like they're focusing on like the blood. He collects the blood. There's just so much of it where they're pushing you 1 inch.
I didn't ever think about like that.
You know, and it's just like, oh, okay, well, he's killing the bad guys. It's fine.
There's a book series though, right? Darkly Dreaming of Dexter was the name of the book.
But what's interesting though is that if you take that a step, but Hollywood endorsed it. That's what I'm saying.
And they
pick something and then they put it their way.
And they changed it.
You know, but like if you think about it, they push that one little thing and then you kind of don't come back to that innocence again where you're like, yeah, murder's just wrong. You're like, well, they were murdering bad guys. And
right. So I guess it's okay.
And then they start saying people that don't submit to the government and are unvaccinated are also bad guys.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
murder porn is what it is.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are bad guys. And then all of a sudden, all the people on the left that have no moral boundary lines are like, I'm cool with put them on the table next.
Look at the punching Nazis. It was just
Nazis.
one step.
Look, Jimmy Kimmel. You guys remember Jimmy Kimmel during it? Oh, what's that? You're a little short of breath, but you took the horse juice. Okay, you can die out there. You don't get to come into the hospital, Wheezy.
Why should we take care of you?
Sorry, Wheezy. He called you Wheezy because you didn't comply with the government, bro.
Yep.
Like they were cool with watching you die. So anyway, crazy world that we live in. Biden's fallen asleep in Maui. Let's talk about that real quick before we end this thing.
This is getting so weird.
Yeah, Maui's getting bonkers. I don't know if I can fully say that I think DEWs did it because I think that's a little bit, it's too soon for me to say that. I don't know enough to say that. And I never want to go further than what I can actually prove with my own brain.
Sure.
So what I've learned from local people from any of the islands, I've been doing just a lot of like looking at people's individual videos, not mainstream media, nothing like that. And people are saying, yes, fires start a lot here. That does happen. They have the dole plantations out there on the other islands. So it does happen. They just said it doesn't happen on this grand a scale. A. B. There is somebody was saying that it might have been electrical, but negligent electrical,
which makes sense to me. Oh, whoopsie!
Right. Well, because of this, the power companies there had been focusing so much. Remember, everything democratically run there, deep blue in the Hawaiian Islands. They were focusing so much energy into green projects that they were neglecting the power grid they have now. And that included the warning system and all that good stuff and everything that to help prevent the deaths that we are seeing that could have possibly, we're not saying that could, but potentially.
Yeah, and let's be honest, if you're an evil person and you have a plan to take over the world, which let's all just say that those things exist, right? Those people exist in the world. They have the ability to do that. You would be hatching a plan to take more control of things. If you're a billionaire who thinks that there should only be 500 million people left on the planet, and you've said it out loud, and you have your hand on the how much food gets produced lever, that's weird. It's different if I'm walking out of a 7-Eleven and I hear a hobo say, we got too many damn people on the planet. I'm like, he's drunk, probably freaking crazy. When Bill Gates says it, then he controls the vaccines for like multiple countries, and he controls like the GMO in the food and now the mosquitoes. It starts to be like, wait a minute, you're not allowed to think there's too many of us, because your thought pattern of thinking there's too many people and your hand on the lever might get a little tempting there. And I'm saying it's more than tempting. I'm saying a lot of these things are intentional. And so here's some of the things that seem a little bit chaotic about the Maui situation. Number one, they've been wanting this area for a long time. And by they, I mean people that are significantly more wealthy than the people that live there. And they've been wanting this.
Government projects, too. If you go to the website where the .gov, whatever, you know how everything FOIA, there's a bunch of projects they've wanted to do and have been in the red. There's like red, yellow, and green. I mean, green mean go, you can do this project. Yellow, it's stuck in sort of litigation. Red meaning it cannot be done. There's a bunch in the red, apparently in the exact area that got destroyed, that they've been wanting to do. This is government projects. Right. And unfortunately red because the residents.
Probably because of something to have to do with the people not willing to give up whatever.
Yes.
Well, so that's one stage of it. That's obviously a very valuable chunk of land and the people weren't giving up. That's just like, oh, maybe that's just a circumstance. The thing that's not is that the water got cut off. So they couldn't put the fires out. I heard that from multiple residents, different videos entirely, that they cut the water while the fire was happening. So they said there was a bunch of residents that said they were squirting their edges of their concrete where the grass met to cut it out. And then their water just stopped.
Wow.
And they were like, oh no. And then it burnt their whole entire house up, multiple of them. Yes. So That's interesting. Another thing about it that seems to be interesting is the thing we were talking about earlier in Las Vegas. The sheriff or whatever who was above that investigation is the guy who happened to be above this investigation.
Right.
Which is pretty crazy. Jeff just pulled something up.
What's that?
I don't know.
mean, I think I'm just too much of a conspiracy theorist to believe that anything happens organically anymore. Like, I'm like 9/11, the war in Iraq. I'm like Hurricane Katrina. The moment I see, Chris Collinsworth and the NFL start talking about a relief fund, I'm like, you guys did something. I know you guys did something. I know this is not organic. So for me, I'm like, that could have been a laser or something. But I guarantee you, look, once they start funneling money, it's like, the war on Ukraine. For me, man, I just don't buy it. Look, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me 10,000 times, or shame on you. Fool me 10,000 times, shame on me and the rest of the American people for buying your bullshit. Like, I just can't abide by listening to any of their rhetoric when at the end of the day, we know they've lied about so much. We know that the government's controlled by some sort of satanic entity that doesn't want our best interests. And, I can't buy it, man.
Yeah, Nick, you have made songs with your buddies that helps to fight this. We've got our new counterculture show where we're pushing back against this. I want to ask, how do we fight this? And I also want to say, along with that, if they bring back the lockdowns, if they bring back the masks and things, this is an opportunity for those of you who didn't stand up to do it right. It's a second chance for you, so take it. But how do we fight this evil? And by the way, I sent Jeff some photos, just a few that I found off the cuff here, because when we had that coffee shop experience, you wouldn't believe how many of those nasty comments you go to their profile and they literally are Luciferians. They worship Satan. But how do we fight this? When you see the evil, what do we do about it?
I think what we're doing right now is a big step in the right direction. I mean, we're talking pro-freedom, we're talking pro-country, we're talking, not just obliging to whatever the, Big Brother tells us to. And I think that all of our patriotic leaders and the founding fathers would be proud of the work that we're doing just right here on this podcast. So I'm proud to be on here with all you guys. You guys seem like all free thinkers, and God bless every single one of you.
I was just about to say, I think more God. Because
Amen.
that's what no matter what, we can accept, we have freedom from religion here.
Right.
However, this country was based on Christian-based values. That's just the way it is. Nobody's saying that you can't do your whatever religion, Buddhism, Hinduism, and all that good stuff. But if you're going to live in this country,
there's some
of the
biblical expectations that we need people to kind of...
And it's based on that, but that's why it's been so successful, is because it is biblically based. That's why this country has been so successful. Nobody's saying that you don't have to buy into the same religion, but the rules are based on that religion, and it is successful because of that. I think Oh, go ahead, Kylie.
Well, there are atheists and secularists who appreciate Christianity because they understand that it is the underpinnings of what keeps society together. In fact, Nietzsche was, when he said God is dead, he was lamenting the fact, because he realized once God is dead, so to speak, society's going to break down. You have no more moral compass. Everyone's just floating out in space, and you have your truth. When you have millions of people having their own truth, it's going to devolve into chaos.
Absolutely.
And that's why declaring the truth is important. And I'm a big believer in the lowercase t truth that we're all talking about right now, which is, this is obviously what's happening. Don't be fooled. Leads people to the capital T truth eventually, which is why I think this thing's going to end in a big revival unto Jesus, where people are actually going back to Jesus and going, dude, you have the words of life. The world tried to give us 1 million fountains, and all of them were poisonous. Mm-hmm. We're coming home, and that's how it's got to be. Everybody's got to come back to base one, man. Well, guys, it's been a hell of a time having you on the show, man. Excited for what the future holds.
I got to give a plug for Russ's team. They'll do video post-production, super professional reels. Nick, you've been on some of those reels. Awesome. Top quality, isn't it?
Yeah, great work, guys.
We'll bring you guys back on soon, man. This is awesome, man. Excited to be doing more of this, and keep your head in the fight, guys. And as always, stay near the faith, man.
So just to close, we're gonna switch roles here. I'm Nick Nittoli, yo. Good being on your show.
And I'm Kelly Walker with Freedom Talk Counterculture.